A particular black person's name, it really meant something. You know, something happened. You could even go to these sheriffs and all. If that family name was there, they could just say anything. You could get anything, the whole family, that family name, it really meant something to them. And they were standing up for us and all, and we didn't have to prove nothing, because that did happen to me. Just like when my father passed in '63. My uncle, I'm sure I know about that. My father had taught me how to drive and everything like that, and my brother, he was in service, so I was the only one in the family who knew how to drive. And so all Uncle Bobby had to do was to walk my car and tell him to give me some license. But a family name was still sure means something, but it doesn't. A family name and all, it had a reputation back then. And if you were really friends, they knew that name and all, they would do anything for you and all. They didn't even know nothing about other members in the family. But that name, it really meant something back in the day and all. And back to these churches, I knew a lot about that. My great-grandfather, well, my dad's grandfather, they gambled and everything at the church. My grandfather got killed gambling in the church, on the church. But I know a lot about all. And then I'm sure I know about all these people you talk about today.
All right, good job.
Okay, Reverend Sadler has talked about the historic importance of building relationships, and we've heard about the importance of family names in terms of getting things done. Reverend Sadler, can you talk a little bit about Atlanta, of course, was the home of Martin Luther King and perhaps the epicenter of the civil rights movement. Can you talk about how Conyers and Rockdale fared during that period, and also the plight of those who didn't have those relationships or may not have had those important names?
Let me go back to 1968. A few days after Dr. King was killed, I believe he was killed on April the 4th, 1968. I believe that was a Thursday night, I believe. And that Friday we had a big assembly that day to talk about that. But anyway, I went into a store here in Conyers. It was called Martin's 10-cent store. It's right down the corner of Center Street, I believe that is, in Main Street. I think Awake Coffee is in that spot now, right along in that area where it is. And I was in there buying something. And you gotta understand that Dr. King has just been killed. There's a lot of tension, going on around the country. And I bumped into this white lady in the store. I was 17 years old. And I bumped into her. And she jumped out of the way and she just apologized for, hitting me or running into me and everything. And I was the one who ran into her because they did not want anything to go off here in Conyers. One of the things I did not mention in some of my talking was that my aunt's pastor was the late Dr. Ralph David Abernathy at West 100th Street Baptist Church. So I was around him a lot, but I couldn't appreciate who he was, because by this time he was the president of SCLC, and to me he was just Diana's pastor. I didn't see him as this big political figure and all that and everything. But to kind of answer your question was, even during that time, here in Conyers, things went pretty well. And I wanted to say one other thing about relationships. When I first became an adult and I wanted to borrow some money, the SunTrust Bank over in Old Town Conyers, there was a vice president in there by the name of Hope Ivy. I would go in there and I wouldn't have to fill out no application or nothing. I'd just tell him that I wanted some money. And like Jackie was saying, he knew that I was Robert Williams' grandson. And that's all it took. And he said, do you want to get it cash or you want to put it in your checking account? That's the only thing he asked. When Jean and I got married, I didn't have enough money to buy a ring. So Conyers Jewelry, they're still across the street from the courthouse. We went in there and looked at some rings. And there was an old lady from that same 10-cent store, Martin's 10-cent store, was in there working. And they knew I didn't have no money to pay cash for it, so I needed to buy no credit. So the old lady said, "Who is your folk?" I said, "Well, you might not remember my mother and father and everything." I said, "But my granddad ran the shoe shop. His name was Robert Williams." She told the lady who owned Conyers jewelry store, "Give him anything he wants." That's why I'm so big on relationships. I'm big on that because that means more than most anything. And so, but during that time, I don't remember really there being, really any major problems here during that period of time. Yeah, there was a lot of tension, but as far as us having problems, because the school integration at that time had been integrated about 2 years when that took place. And so things were not 100% great, but they were pretty good. All things considered, when I look at how things were around the rest of the country, and even right down here in Newton County, we did well here in Rockdale County. Very well. Okay.
Any other questions? Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ashanti Johnson. Before I have a lot of questions, but I think first and foremost, I just want to thank you all for putting this on. This is a great opportunity to sit and learn from you all, not just from Reverend Sadler, but everybody in this room. Specifically for people who did not grow up in Conyers. My family's from Virginia as well, and my parents were the first to integrate their county high school, Matthews and Middlesex County. And it's just interesting to hear your story because their story is very different. And you touched on a lot of the questions I had previously, but one of the things I'm very interested in getting your thoughts on is, as Conyers really, a lot of people wouldn't consider it a rural, it's not rural anymore, right? A lot of people just think of it as an extension of Atlanta. So what gets lost a lot of times is that historical perspective of the black families that are from here, right, and what their story is. As the city grows and grows, I think there's always a risk of that history kind of being diluted. So I just want to kind of get your thoughts on, what are the evolution of a lot of the black families that are from here, and as you see the demographics of the county change, what do you think are some of the opportunities that we face? That you see, and what are also some of the threats?
Okay. Let me shock you by first of all saying this. When I was a student in high school, I was not a person who liked history. I hated history. And here I am now talking about history. I think one of the things that we run the risk of is doing exactly what you said, is losing that history, because people who move here don't realize some of the things and that have taken place, some of the ground that has already been laid. And I don't know what's the best way other than things like this to do to continually lay that foundation, because we have that same problem in the church. When you have new people come into the church, eventually the ones who are responsible for that church being where it is, we lose that history because people say, well, we don't want to live in the past. But I think you really need to know where you came from. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we have. We as a people don't teach our children about what we went through. Many times we are ashamed of the fact that we worked in cotton fields and all that kind of stuff. We don't want to tell people about that. We don't want to tell people about our uncles and aunts that were struggling with mental health, alcoholism. We want to hide that because we've gotten above that, and we think because we've been able to go to college, we've been able to move into certain neighborhoods and drive different kinds of cars, own different kind of homes and so forth. But I think that's one of the problems. And when I was talking to one of my former co-workers, he was from Colombia, South America. And I asked him this question. I said, these little kids you got, what language are you going to teach them at home? He said, I'm gonna teach them Spanish. And I was thinking, that's crazy. They're gonna be behind in school. If you don't teach them English, you say, they can learn English when they get to school. But I want them to learn Spanish. And I said, why do you want them to learn Spanish? He said, so they can communicate with my family when they go back to Colombia. Because you look at us, we can't communicate with people that's from our mother country and whatever, because we've lost all of that. But I think that, to me, that's one of the biggest challenges. And the other challenge is the fact that thinking that we have made it because we are in certain positions and because we have, got elected to various positions and so forth, we still have a struggle. And I think we need to realize that there are young people that are still getting in trouble. They don't understand that things are not where they need to be. They're not all equal. And you need to understand that there's, especially if you got a black son or a nephew or whatever, your cousin or some of them, you need to let him understand that what we were taught in the 50s and 60s, which it may not have been right, but our parents taught us how to come home at night. There's still danger, and we need to still instill some of those principles in them to let them know that it's still a dangerous world out here. Everybody don't love you. So, did I answer your question? I don't know. Okay. Any other questions?
Okay, we have time for about one or two more questions, and then we'll kind of wrap it up with some announcements about some upcoming events. One or two more questions?
Just a comment. Thank you. I'm Yvette Washington. And Reverend Sadler, my mother attended Morris Brown College also. And she talked about going to the Fox Theater and having to walk up 100 steps to go to the movies or whatever. Is that what you're on the side? And so I said, Mama, those are steps. Because she was from Florida. And, we followed Morris Brown. When you were in the Rose Bowl, we would watch you on TV. Because she was such a, she is a Wolverine, a real Wolverine. Yes. So I just wanted to ask, is that your experience
Yes.
and so forth?
That's pretty much it. And the thing is, Professor Simmons here has a different story than I have. He experienced a lot more than I did. But the thing is, as I said, a lot of times, it could have been a better way. There was a lot of disadvantages and stuff, but in spite of all of that, because, with the used books and everything that we still had lawyers to come out here, doctors to come out here, professors to come out of the school, even though they didn't have the equipment that they needed, pilots, business owners, and everything to come out of this school system. So we didn't use that as an excuse. We didn't use that as a crutch to say, well, we didn't have this and we didn't have that. And I was just, Ms. Simmons reminded me, Dr. Simmons, I call him Dr. Simmons all the time, Professor, I call him all kind of names, was one of the first blacks to ever run for office here in Conyers back in the day. And, he didn't get elected, but his name was out there. I'm going to close with this final point. This is a true story. In the city of Conyers, back in the 70s, and this is how I kind of got involved in public service, and one of the other reasons why I wanted to do the things that I'm doing in public service is because of the name that my grandfather had. But they were condemning a lot of black people's homes in the city of Conyers. And the Progressive Club, that's been around over 60-some years, got involved, and we said, we're going to go to City Hall, and we're going to complain about that. You're not tearing down the white people's houses, but you're tearing down the black folks' houses. Every time, some black folk move out of the house and stuff, they condemn it and what have you. So Gregory Levitt and I were young and upcoming at the time. So we were allowed to do things in the Progressive Club that the older guys wouldn't do because they were afraid in some cases. And so they sent us to City Hall one night, to the city council meeting. And we both got up and complained about the fact of how they were tearing down black people's houses and stuff. And they explained to us, their reasoning at the time of why they were doing it, and because the people, they wouldn't, condemning the house while people were in there, but when they died, they would condemn the houses. And so some white people were still living in houses that were dilapidated and so forth. So we thought we did a great job. We thought we had had a ride. We were in our 20s. The Rockdale Citizen, I think, came out once a week. And it came out a few days after that. We made the paper, so we were excited that our name was in the Rockdale Citizen. But the big headline was, Black Group Blast City Hall. That was the headline for that particular, and that's, so naturally, people were gonna read it because they wanna know who was the black group, who were these people that went over there and did this. But I need to report to you today that the Klan never marched on our house. They never burned a cross in our yard because of doing that. And to be honest with you, in none of the places that I've ever lived have I ever had the Klan to burn a cross in my yard in Rockdale County. I've never had, I can't say everybody can say that same thing, but I can truly say, and where I grew up was right there where that bridge goes across Parker Road, when you come from the south and you get to the light, you turn to the right, you go up to where Vic and Daphne grew up, and if you turn to the left, there's a road that comes back into Dogwood Drive that came right through the property where I grew up. And my mother and father had to move from there because they were putting that bridge because of I-20. That's where I grew up. And I'm telling you, we lived all around white folk and black folk, but I never saw a cross burned in our yard. Now, everybody probably can't say that, but I'm just speaking from my point of view, because there are other people who can tell some stories and they'll be different than mine. But again, I want to say thank you for listening to me and having this opportunity to speak before you. I hope that when they have the video ready that you will take it and send it to some other people and watch it and everything. And I hope I made some. There was a lot of stuff I wanted to say, but I ran out of time. I got a lot more to say. I just ran out of time. All right.
Thank you so much.
I think Reverend Sadler there, we'll have to invite them to join us for our next breakfast at Chick-fil-A. That's going to be the 4-hour breakfast.
All right.
Let's give Reverend Sadler a round of applause. Also wanted to make sure to thank the Nancy Gwynn Library and the NAACP. As I mentioned at the outset, this is the first in a series of events that will be going on for February, which is Black History Month. Next week we have on the 10th at the Rockdale Auditorium at 3 o'clock their Heritage Cultural Showcase. It's going to be really exciting. Some dynamic acts, step shows, vocalists, trumpeters, the whole 9 yards. I see Dwight Wicks and Yvette Washington are here. They have some information. They'll be happy to talk with you more about it more in detail afterwards. The following week, we're showing the movie Marshall back here at the library, and there'll be a discussion afterwards, so you want to mark your calendars for that. The following week, the NAACP is sponsoring group tickets to see King Hedley II, which is an August Wilson film. Many of you know the name August Wilson. He also wrote Fences, the movie, and the King Hedley is being produced by True Colors with Kenny Leon, Tony Award-winning Kenny Leon. So we've really got some exciting things. And then the first, I think it is, well, the 2nd of March will conclude Black History Month with the August Wilson contest. Let me say a little bit about that. Kenny Leon and True Colors Theater are promoting up-and-coming actors by having a national-wide competition of August Wilson works. August Wilson wrote, I think it was like 10 plays over a period of time. And so they have students from all around the nation competing in a monologue competition, with the winners going up to New York and competing on Broadway. Last year, in our own backyard, we had a participant from Heritage High School. Him, as well as another individual, will be participating next week in the show. She'll get to see that. But on March 2nd, they will be having the regional finals down at the Southwest Arts Center. That's completely free. All you have to do is make your reservations, and they have information about that. The tickets to King Hedley, you can speak with me about that afterwards also. So with that, I'm going to conclude the program, but also point out that you can speak to either Dwight Wicks or Yvette Washington about additional information. Yes?
I have a suggestion, maybe for next year or a later time. The movie Lincoln.
Oh, excuse me a second. I guess we can finish.